Hey, welcome to the Naval News, everybody. This video is sponsored by Private Internet Access. Thank you to them for sponsoring us. All right, today's graphic from the Naval Institute shows our fleets around the world. I did modify this one a little bit because the Dwight D. Eisenhower went to sea this morning at the time of this recording. And this could be in response to the anniversary of the invasion of Donbass in Ukraine coming up in just a couple of days. We have additional assets at sea ready to respond if things get out of hand. More on that at the end of the video here. But we have George H.W. Bush patrolling the Mediterranean. You know, lots of armored ships and airplanes operating in that area, really ready to go. On the Pacific side, we have two of our big fleets in port this week. America ARG and Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group continues to do maintenance. The Makin Island and Nimitz that were operating together last week have ended that. Nimitz is moving east into the South Philippine Sea, possibly transiting to Guam. We don't know that, but they are moving in that direction. And Makin Island continues to operate with all the Marines there in the South China Sea. This is a photo from last week when the Nimitz and the Makin Island were operating together. This is not something that you see every day, so I thought this would be interesting. This is a lot of firepower, a lot of Marines and their air support on the ship in front of you at the bottom. And then, of course, the Nimitz with all that firepower, including nuclear capabilities there. And you can see the wake of something on the other side. There's actually three ships in this photo, but one's being masked up there at the very top. And this was a really cool photo released by the Navy as well of the Makin Island doing some air operations with a low-setting sun there, or a rising sun. We don't know. Really cool stuff. All right, real quick, a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. Thank you to Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video. Private Internet Access is a low-cost, high-speed, virtual private network service provider. When you're connected to the internet on public Wi-Fi or even at home, your data is at risk of being stolen. Hackers that are connected to the same Wi-Fi can view your keystrokes, passwords, browsing, and personal data. Private Internet Access helps protect you by hiding your IP address and encrypting your data through their world-class server infrastructure. Using the internet without PIA is like using a changing room with no door. Everyone can see your shorts and will leave disappointed. I use Private Internet Access every time I travel. It ensures that my connection is private and encrypts peer-to-peer file sharing. PIA has a no logs policy. This has been proven multiple times in court by a third-party independent auditor. Private Internet Access also allows you access to region-restricted content from all major streaming services, so when I'm meeting my sources in Australia, I can still watch my favorite shows. PIA is available on all platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Android, Linux, and iOS, and one subscription can be used on 10 devices at the same time. Use my link in the description to grab an 83% discount on Private Internet Access. That's just $2.03 a month, and you get 4 extra months for free. Sign up with Private Internet Access is risk-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, and 24/7 customer support is available. Use my link in the description and protect yourself with Private Internet Access. All right, and welcome back. So I took a little bit of liberties here to modify the Naval Institute's graphics with some deployments that China is doing right now, so we can begin to visually compare and contrast what we do and with what China does. Probably the most significant thing in my opinion, and I'm a little biased here, but the submarine, the Type 039 Song, conventionally powered submarine, Chinese submarine, was observed, we'll say, going into the East Indian Ocean. And so we have a rough idea of where she is at now. Obviously, once she's submerged, they lost sight of her. But we know that she can't go very far from where she was there. Now, she could be transiting to who knows where, but that's her approximate position at this time. I do want to point out the Naval Escort Task Force you see there in the Gulf of Aden. They've been operating, China's been operating that task force since 2017 continuously out of a base they built in Djibouti. They might have purchased it and then modified it. I think that's a little more accurate, but we'll say that they've built it. And they also increased the harbor and pier size in Djibouti to support their aircraft carriers. So if they want to, they can move their aircraft carrier fleet to operate out of Djibouti there in the Gulf of Aden. And that is a continuous escort presence where Chinese warships escort merchant vessels through pirate-infested waters there, keeping those merchants safe. And then finally, down at the south, there's the joint exercise between South Africa, Russia, and China. That's going on this week. And not actually, it's a very small exercise, but it has a lot of political implications because Russia's involvement. And we have South Africa that has a history of working closely with China. So, you know, we've got a list now of countries that are working closer and closer with China. We can add Brazil to that list for economic reasons. Brazil is part of what's called the BRIC, or the BREC, you could call it. It's an economic union between India, Russia, China, and Brazil. And so, you know, we could possibly see more of these forward overseas deployments into the South Atlantic if Brazil gets closer and closer with China. That's kind of the tempo, that's kind of the pattern we're seeing here. That wouldn't be anytime soon. That would be sometime, if it even does happen, in the next 15 years. But just like China has a constant presence now off the Horn of Africa, we could see that happen in the South Atlantic in the future. Just something to think about. All right, let's shift focus here because this is the 1-year anniversary of Russia's invasion of the Donbass in Ukraine. And, you know, because it's an anniversarial moment, we're expecting, not we, but intelligence services are expecting some kind of symbolic attack, if not, you know, a larger attack in this area. So what we have here, and I've highlighted this for you, is increased equipment movement, Ukraine equipment movement in this area, perhaps preparing for any kind of, you know, additional attacks to what we're seeing here. Now, I'm not a fire and maneuver expert. There's a lot of YouTube channels that do this much better than I do, but I wanted to at least acknowledge the anniversary and some of the rhetoric that's coming out of Russia right now. For example, Putin this past week formally suspended Russia's involvement in the New START treaty, which was really the final treaty they had restricting the use of nuclear weapons. So if Putin was not using nuclear weapons just because of that treaty, well, that leash is now off. I don't think that's the case. We've seen a lot of rhetoric out of Putin since this all began, so I don't think anything significant has really changed here. There are two official sources here that say, first, a U.S. senior intel official that is unnamed, so he's anonymous, but he spoke with, I believe it was Newsweek, and said that the Russians do not have the materials to do a major offensive as a 1-year anniversary offensive. Everything that they have engaged right now is everything that they can throw at this time because they're limited by logistics and manpower and whatnot. And they're literally doing horrific human wave attacks there in the east, in the Donbass. Another official, this was a NATO official, and this one, he had a really good point. He said, we recommend sending as many air defense systems into Ukraine as possible because that's really what Ukraine needs right now, implying that maybe this anniversary attack or the next big escalation is going to come through air power because that's what Russia has left. They have, you know, obviously a lot of planes, a lot of fighters, and then they also have the bombers that could be supported by the planes to conduct a bombing operation in Ukraine. So that is a realistic escalation of force because they're doing everything they can with their ground forces right now. Bringing in the Air Force in a big way would be a major escalation. So that's a little more realistic. And then the final one that is very, I think, unlikely is there could be a limited, you know, battlefield nuclear weapon usage in Kiev. There's a lot of reasons why this probably won't happen, but Putin acting irrationally is one reason why it might happen because he doesn't have a long-term vision of the consequences of everything that's going on right now. He's looking very short-term, and this would be a very symbolic strike, no matter the size of the strike. If it's nuclear at all, that's a very defining moment in world history. But one of the big reasons why this would be a terrible idea is, besides the casualties, would be the fallout in this location, this geography, would move eastward over the Donbass and then in parts of Russia as well. So he would be, you know, damaging the entire reason why he's saying, anyway, he wants to move in and claim this territory. The territory would be just contaminated. The other major reason is Xi has announced that he's going to Moscow. Now, we don't have an exact date yet, but a lot of people believe that it's going to be in April. And so if he does something ridiculous right now, like using nuclear weapons of any size, then it's likely that this would not happen, and he could actually lose the support of China, which is one of the last major countries that still support Russia in a quote-unquote unrestricted manner. That quote is from last year before he invaded Ukraine. They had a meeting just a couple days before that where China pledged unrestricted support. And I guess they're going to update that in April. We'll see what comes out of that meeting. So hopefully, we don't see any escalation whatsoever, but Russia is big on symbology. Whenever you can't have sustained gains, you need something else to use for propaganda. So a big airstrike or something even higher up than that is likely. All right, and let's take a little moment to calm back down again. This is my doggo. This is the doggo tax for this video. Hopefully none of what I just said actually happens and everybody just gets along. This is Bianca. Look at her. She's laying there in the grass, enjoying the sunlight. All right, and something a little bit funny came out. This is a U.S. Navy official release from the USS Nimitz. Here you can see religious services going on, praising the Lord of nuclear power that provides all the energy and light for the ships on board. But no, actually, this is actually just routine maintenance. And there's a lot going on in this photo that is unsaid. But as a former enlisted man, let me tell you a little bit about this story here. So here we have a sailor who was assigned to change a light bulb. That's what he's doing. And this light bulb is in the overhead, above his head. So he's wearing safety glasses. That makes sense. That's a good idea. I'm sure on his procedure, it says wear safety glasses. But look closer at this picture. He's also wearing a hard hat. Yeah, a little bit of overkill there, but in the world of operational risk management, where there can be no chance of any kind of mishap without severe investigation consequences, everybody takes additional steps or enforces additional steps at the command and lower level that go far above and beyond what the procedure says, just to make sure everyone stays safe. So let me outline to you this sailor's day that led to this moment. So he comes to work. He's already on board the ship, but they have a morning muster handing out the jobs that need to get done today. He has to change the light bulb. That's his job. He's got the procedure. This is a reader-worker routine, so he's got to grab a buddy. That's sailor number 2. That's usually more senior than him by maybe a rank or just time on board. Doesn't have to be rank. So now we got 2 sailors with a procedure going to get some light bulbs, maybe a screwdriver to take the cover off there, and then head their way to the officer of the day, or duty officer, whatever term they want to use. This is the officer that authorizes work on board the ship, whether it's in port or at sea. And it's a big ship. There's lots of people doing work, so they all have to go up to the duty officer and get permission to begin work, explaining what they're doing. Now, in a large ship like this, I'm sure they have multiple officers that authorize this work, so they don't have to wait all day just to begin the job. The duty officer will ask them questions like, who's going to be doing the maintenance? Why is the maintenance due? You'll have to show them the procedure, the card with the date on it that says that it's got to get done. And then he'll ask, well, what are the electrical panels that are going to be powering this light? And is the light going to be on whenever you change it? And the answer, according to the card, is yes. And they give them the power panel number. That's sailor number 3. They need to have a sailor at the breaker to shut the breaker off in case something catches on fire or this poor sailor gets electrocuted as he changes the light bulb. So they have to go get another buddy. They come back to the officer of the deck. They got 3 buddies now. They got a reader, they got a worker, and they got a brake guy. They're going to be on phone comms because the breaker is not in the same space as the light. So they have to have sound-powered communications between the two. Duty officer is happy. He says, begin work, sailors. They all run off, get their gear and their hard hat and their safety glasses and begin unscrewing the light, as you see here. This is whenever the senior enlisted gets involved because he doesn't want any mishaps to happen on his watch. So there's a 4th enlisted guy now watching the reader, who's watching the worker on the sound-powered phones with the guy at the breaker. Now, there's something that goes on board all the time called qualifications. Junior officers that come on board, whether they're ensigns or lieutenant JGs, need to qualify duty officers. It's one of the first qualifications that they do. This requires that they observe maintenance being done especially if it's a reader worker routine with a live electrical circuit with a man at the breaker. So now you have a junior officer who comes in behind the chief petty officer to watch the supervisor, watching the reader worker, watch the worker with the guy on the breaker, 5 people changing a light bulb. And so this goes on without a problem. You change the light bulb, the safety glasses do their job, nobody gets hurt, and they've changed the light bulb on a live breaker. The duty officer gets his update, works complete. Junior officer gets his signature. The chief petty officer's happy. He goes back and drinks coffee in the goat locker. And then the maintenance gets documented in the 3M system that you changed the light bulb, and everybody in the Navy, all the way up to the president if he wants to, can check the maintenance records of the USS Nimitz and see that the sailor changed the light bulb in accordance with the maintenance requirements. And that's life in the Navy, folks. That's just the way it is. 5 people, 1 operation, 1 light bulb. Well done. So a big salute to all the enlisted out there that have to put up with this freaking system that makes you go through all these checks to do routine maintenance. And if you want to experience that yourself, join the Navy. It's kind of a joke, but it's very real to those of us that had to do it. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye. Crazy, man. Just crazy. Whew, I ran out of breath on that story. What the fuck?